again, listen, 2,000 planks, take the case easy, overlook any witness tampering, alright? Shut the F up and take your money, okay? Now listen, don't you ever call me after 4 o'clock on the Sabbath again, okay? I will go over to your house and I will, Frank, on your doorstep, I will rain holy fire all over you. I will baptize you with... Oh, I got another client, alright? Don't call me again.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we talk for a sec?
Hey, Emeraldminer, long time no see. Sorry, just had to get off the phone with a client of mine. Come here, sit, let's talk.
Well, I was just going to make a proposition for you. If we continue to use the Patriots and their likenesses in the draft videos, you know, a lot of people still like those videos and are still talking about them to this day. So it'd be good if we could give the people what they want. Well, listen, Emerald, I'm flattered, you know, that so many people seem to like us, but the fact is, you're not going to get us again if you draft team. There's no way you could get all those mons to line up like that. I mean, I don't know how you're going to incorporate some of these skits still. Yeah, but you know, I figured that there's a lot of characters from the storyline that we didn't really get to talk about or use, and so I figured if I draft mons that are similar to those and I can find nicknames for them, then I can still include them. It doesn't even have to be live action. I mean, I could use them in the game with just the Pokemon themselves still interacting with their Season 3 counterparts. Okay, that makes sense. There were a lot of side characters we didn't use. I guess if you could put them onto your team and then they could interact with us, that could work. Give me a moment to discuss your proposition with our business partners, and then we'll see what we can work out.
Alright people, it's finally time! I'm coming off of my hiatus to return to the UNPL Season 5. And we are going to be coming in with the Demolition Force once again in our third appearance in the UNPL. I've been playing Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, a little bit of Wind Waker on the Wii U, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. But it's finally time to hop back on the Pokemon horse. And here we are. So I want to thank ItzDannyMac, DapperSnapper, Ruppy, the whole commissioner team for the UNPL for inviting me back. And thanks to Marcus for making these absolutely incredible slides. And with that, we're going to get into it. So, first of all, let's lay out the ground rules for this thing. Because it's going to be a little bit different than previous seasons. So, first of all, it's not 2 divisions, it's 1 division with 16 coaches. So, very similar for BHDL fans out there. 115 points to draft a minimum of 9, a maximum of 11 Pokemon. We've got 7 free agency transactions, but in addition to that, we'll get into the Terra Captain specifics in a bit. But if we want to swap out, I believe a Terra Captain or a Terra type, I might be wrong exactly about that, but basically if you want a Terra change, you can actually use 1 free one before you have to dip into your transaction points. So that's pretty neat. In addition, we've also got 3 Terra Captains that you can choose that total up to a max of 12 points. So you might be already seeing that's pretty low. And you would be right, because we're going to be low tier Terra, 6 points and below. And the reason for that is just to kind of let these Pokemon that we haven't really got to see, let them shine some more in the midst of, you know, all these powerful Pokemon that are coming out in draft. You know, 115 points, 9 to 11 Pokemon, there's going to be a lot of powerhouses. Although I will say, having it be 16 coaches, you already know there's going to definitely be a little bit of sniping. But 6 points and below is pretty low. And so that's why it's only 12 points. And with that, we've also got fixed Terra, but the additional change here is that you don't necessarily have to choose the stab type, meaning that you could choose up to 3 types that are, well, you have to choose 3 types, but basically all 3 can be types that aren't stab, which is pretty neat. Although you still, if you do choose a stab, you can only choose 1. That being said, let's move on now to the draft order. So, for this, I'm just going to say, I wasn't anywhere near the start. We got Ruppy, KyleAye, Gentleman Thomas, ItzDannyMac, One Crash, GrandMaster Drey, DapperSnapper, UndertheRadar in the top 8. We got Tone, Darude, Viz, keeps wanting to say Hunky Dory every time I see her name, I'm so sorry. HunkyDonkey, Galvanate, GoldynGuy, and then finally me coming in at number 15 with Grumm just behind me at 16 at the wheel. So this is the farthest back I've ever been in draft, honestly. I might have come close in some leagues like the YCL way back in the day, but for the most part, this is the closest I've been to the wheel. Now, having this spot at number 15, though, means that the first round, all those good Pokemon, the Urshifus, all the top tier Dragapults, Iron Vals, I mean, those were obviously going to be gone, but, you know, Terrapagos, anything that was really powerful that I might have wanted to try out was pretty much all gone. But I did still get to choose a decent Pokemon for my first pick. So with that being said, the first pick for the Demolition Force is... Now, Latios was actually my next pick up after Latios. Latios was picked up by GoldynGuy just before me, but that's okay though, because now we get to use the legit shiny Latios that I got from Pokemon Go way back in the day, named Golden Draco, so it's kind of fitting that it was already named Golden after GoldynGuy. And if you don't know, Latios actually, when it's shiny, has an emerald color to it, so it's kind of like we traded off in that regard. That being said, the special attack on this thing and speed are pretty decent. Its special defense is very good, so this thing will do quite well at being a special wall, in addition to dropping Dracos. It's got a wide array of special moves from Surf to Energy Ball to Ice Beam to Aura Sphere. It's got a lot of good stuff, and Draining Kiss and Stored Power. I don't know how often I'll be using that set. It's pretty broken as a set, so I don't know if I want to have to rely on that too much, because then it just becomes obvious. Overall, I just see this thing kind of being like do whatever I need it to do type of Pokemon, and hit whatever I gotta hit. So, Latios, solid first pick. And now let's move on to pick number 2, which is going to be Samurott Hisui. Now, Golden Draco is obviously already fixed as a name. I can't change it even if I wanted to. But the rest of the Pokemon are going to be named after characters from my D&D campaign with my friends, bringing back the skits from Season 3 as much requested. So this is going to be named after Arno Athenol, who is a surgeon and also kind of a Batman vigilante type that uses throwing knives. So I figure all that work with knives and sharp objects fits perfectly with this Pokemon with sharpness and swords and all that. So, obviously, the biggest reason I chose this thing was because of Cecil's Edge. As we all know, I do love my hazards, and being able to get them up with an attack, oh, that's beautiful. I've never gotten to try this thing out in draft, so this will finally give me the opportunity to do so. In addition to that, though, it also has Knockoff and Sucker Punch, which are great dark type attacks. It's also got 100 base special attacks, so if I ever wanted to run special, I could do that. With Hydro Pump and sharpness boosted air slashes and all that, it's not a bad option. 85 base speed is pretty decent. Can run Scarf, can run Bandit, do a lot of stuff. 90 HP and 80 defense ain't bad either. Solid water typing. The 65 Spadef leaves it a little bit to be desired, but I can work with that. Overall, I'm just hoping that I can land my Ceaseless Edges. Obviously, when you use this thing, it's very much reliant on can you land those. I know Pokeaim didn't quite land as many of them as he wanted to, but my friend Scorpion in the BHDL managed to, and went all the way to finals with this thing, so I think we could do pretty good with this. So, that's our second Pokemon. Let's now move on to number 3, who is going to be Clefable. So I really wanted to start rounding out that Dragon Fairy Steel Core. Clefable is a great utility Pokemon. Gives me access to Stealth Rocks, also has Knockoff and various status moves. This thing has both Unaware and Magic Guard, both incredible abilities in draft. Being able to just ignore opposing hazards, or being able to just ignore setup. Both of which are very common strats used in draft. So, having this in my arsenal is going to be absolutely incredible. This thing can, it has a lot of, just like Latios has a wide array of special moves. It's not quite as strong, but it's a little bit bulkier. Well, not quite. It's probably around the same. I think it has higher HP, but its defenses are lower, obviously. But Latios, you have to invest in the speed, versus Clefable, I don't have to. I can just actually invest in the defenses if I want to. So, that's pretty much Clefable, who is going to be named after Bad Benjamin, who is a pixie guy that's kind of just an annoying guy to our squad. He runs the BBW house, Bad Benjamin's Waffle House, which is run by pixies. And yeah, so when I picture Clefable as just this annoying little fairy pixie guy, you know, it fits right in there with Bad Benjamin. So there's that. Now, Pokemon number 4. Finally rounded out the Dragon Fairy Steels with Metagross. Very strong physical attacker. I wanted to try to really hit hard. Obviously, Sharpness Boost and Ceaseless Edges hit pretty hard, but having that raw 135 base attack is excellent. Clear body to ignore any type of Intimidate stuff. And in addition, a really strong physically defensive Pokemon, because up until now we kind of mostly had Spadef walls, but this is a solid defensive Pokemon. Also has access to rocks, has access to moves like Bullet Punch, which is great. Honestly, I did prefer Sizzlor over this thing just because the access to Defog, which not my favorite way of getting rid of hazards, but it did allow me to not have to overlap types. Here we do have a second Psychic type, but I'm thinking we can still do pretty solid with it. It's not the fastest thing in the world, but it is pretty darn strong with Bullet Punch, and hoping that can make up for it. So Metagross is going to be nicknamed R1C13, aka Ricky, who is a Warforged spider bot who went on to become one of the main villains. Basically took over this Arakocra body. It was a whole thing, bro. It's crazy. But just know that they started out in like a spider bot form, like Metagross here. Pretty cool stuff. So that's Metagross, very strong physical attacker. Now we're going to move on to Pokemon number 5. So, obviously, we need some sort of way to remove hazards. And I knew that as the rounds went on, my odds of getting a decent spinner were going to drop. Of course, by this point, you already know that Great Tusk, all the Donphan clones, and Excadrill were long gone. At this point, though, you know, having a grounded poison type and a rapid spinner in one, not bad at all. And very high special attack, the highest special attacker that we've had up to this point, with some decent speed. Now, as I've already said, we already have 2 Stealth Rockers, and a Pokemon that can get up spikes naturally. So, Glamora's role in that regard is kind of already fulfilled, though we do have T-Spikes, which is great. But I think that is honestly going to work out for the best in my favor, or in my case, because I feel like a lot of Glamoras struggle in draft, because they have to be the ones to set up hazards, but also remove them, which doesn't leave much for it to do a lot else. So now that I don't have to worry about necessarily getting them up, I can leave that to somebody else. I can focus more on that base 130 special attack stat, because this thing has some decent coverage moves. You know, it's got Earth Power, Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, has a lot of cool stuff. So I'm hoping that overall, oh, and of course Meteor Beam, freaking awesome move. So I'm hoping with all that Glamora can do pretty well for me in that regard. And it's going to be named after Peter the Putrid, but here it's going to be Peter D. Putrid, like in One Piece. Basically, he was this very nasty, stinky orc that they fought in this sewer games, and you know, I just figured the toxic typing of Glamora fits right with that. So there we go, Peter D. Putrid. So, with that, we're going to move on to Pokemon number 6, who is going to be Shaman. Now, Shaman, I really wanted a grass type, because I feel like a lot of times the grass types get eaten up. And as you can see, we have 2 Pokemon that are weak to ground. I do have a Levitator, but I kind of want to get some more ground resist and to secure a grass type. Now, Shaman doesn't have the most in terms of a wide array of moves. It does have, you know, Seed Flare, Earth Power, Dazzling Gleam, some cool stuff. It can also run physical, you know, SD with Seed Bomb, stuff like that, which is cool. But other than that, it's just not a lot else it can do. Obviously, I can run Sub Leech Seed, but I do not want to do that. That is not my playstyle, and I would not want to force anyone to sit through that. So you don't have to worry about that coming from me. At least I'll try my best not to. But 100, 100, 100 in each defenses is very good. You know, think Manaphy stats. You know, think about how hard it is to kill that thing or Mew. Of course, having a grass type with those defenses does not work out for the best. But it's a solid Pokemon. Establishes my base 100 speed tier. My speed tiers are mostly varied at this point, except for Glamora and Samurai Sui. That being said, Shaman is going to be named after Beanstalk. Obviously, this thing isn't a Beanstalk, but there was a moment in the campaign where Beanstalk was growing some flowers on the ground, and Shaman's going to flower, and it's the only plant type of organism that was in the campaign really that showed up. That was kind of an adversary at one point, although kind of an ally at another two. So that's Shaman. So next up, we're going to have Dugtrio at number 7. So Dugtrio, very fast Pokemon. As I was looking through the tiers, I was honestly kind of worried about getting a fast Pokemon, because as I was looking at it, I was like, you know, there aren't really that many Pokemon faster than base 1, or faster than or equal to base 120. And I really wanted to hit that speed tier or be higher than it. And, you know, obviously Polt's going to be gone. Valiant's gone. A lot of the Pokemon that are faster than 120 are gone. Dugtrio was one of the only ones that was left. And I know it's not the strongest Pokemon, but this thing does have one thing that sets it apart, which is Arena Trap, so that I can trap my counters for my other Pokemon, which is pretty cool. In addition to being super fast, having Stealth Rocks, as Final Gambit, Sucker Punch, a lot of cool moves. You know, it actually has Swords Dance in this generation, surprisingly. And Dugtrio is going to be named after Garbage Greg, who was basically a police detective that was interviewing the players in the first session, and they were making fun of him because he had some, let's just say some, like, donut debris on his cheek. And, you know, use your imagination with the shape of Dugtrio and what it's commonly known for. And you can elaborate on why they would make fun of him for that. So, I don't want to get too explicit, though, with that. That being said, let's move on to Pokemon number 8, who is going to be Flamigo. Now, I feel like I really needed some offensive pressure at this point, in addition to, obviously, like the Samurai Sui and the Metagross. I needed something decently fast. 90 base speed is only just a little bit faster than Samurai Sui, but having the fighting, flying, stab coverage is excellent. You know, think Hawlucha. You know, there's not a lot that can switch in on it. Now, obviously, it doesn't have the widest array of moves, but Close Combat, Brave Bird, U-Turn is pretty much all I need. I can also run like a bulk up acrobatic set, or agility. There's some other neat things I can do with it. But the biggest appeal for me with this was its ability Scrappy, allowing me to hit ghost types. There's a lot of teams that have ghost types to fix their fighting weaknesses. So if there's any teams that are particularly weak to fighting, Flamigo can just start going in with close combat, which is great, and also be immune to Intimidate. So Flamigo is going to be named after Pink Guy, who is, if you guys remember, Caesar Rasper, who was Pheasantipity in Season 3, was a Kinku, and his father is Pink Guy, also a Kinku. So Flamigo is kind of slip into that role. Fatherly figure, might have some skits with that, we'll see. So that's Flamigo. Next up, we are going to have Dusknor, who is going to be our spin blocker, as well as our first Terra Captain this time around. Now, I feel like a lot of times when I pick ghost types to be spin blockers, I need them to be bulky. This is one of the bulkiest spin blockers you can get, apart from like Palisand or something like that. Obviously, its HP isn't very high, but if I don't have to invest in the speed, thankfully, so I can just go straight into the HP generally. And yeah, this thing is pretty solid. Its attack isn't the greatest, but it does have a very strong ghost type move in Poltergeist. It also has Shadow Sneak. It has a couple of other elemental punches, obviously. But it being a Terra Captain is great for, let's say I run into some dark types. I have the Terra Blast Fairy. I also have Terra Blast Water if I wanted to. The water typing is really just to fix my matchup, kind of, if I'm not looking particularly great. Water is just an overall great type to have defensively, so I figured why not. In addition, because it is a Terra Captain, I can actually make use of the move Curse. Because usually if you're a Ghost type, it just halves your HP and puts a Curse on him. But if I Terra outside of Ghost, then I can actually increase my attack and defense, which is great for dusknor. It's never been able to do that up to this point. So being able to utilize that would be great. So that being said, that's dusknor, who is going to be named after the big guy. It was such a funny name. Basically, he was this dude haunting this hotel that they were these ghosts trying to get them to go see the big guy. Hey, you guys want to see the big guy? And we were pretty scared. We just thought he'd like instantly kill us or something. So this is pretty much the image that I had in my head when I was thinking about the big guy. So that's dusknor. Next up, we are going to have Hound Doom, our next Terra Captain. I needed a fire type at this point. Still didn't have one. This is going to be our second double dip. We've double dipped into both psychic types and dark types. But I'm kind of fixing that here by having it be a Terra Captain. Both Fairy and Grass are excellent coverage for Hound Doom to have. Now, I know that Hound Doom isn't particularly looked well upon in this day and age. I think it's like ZU or something like that. But I think that this really embodies what they were going for with low tier Terra. This thing is a solid Pokemon with 110 special attack, 95 base speed. Its attack ain't bad either, 90 base attack. But I think in previous leagues it's just been overlooked. It's only like 3 points, I think. This thing is a steal, a bargain. But the problem with Hound Doom was that it just doesn't quite hit hard enough. It's just not quite fast enough. But it does have Nasty Plot. If I can make use of it with Terra, then I think it can do pretty well. It's going to be named after Hawthorne, who was kind of the main ally of the squad throughout most of the campaign, and he was a police detective, soon to be chief of the police, and he's kind of got, let's just say he's got some devil powers on his side. He's also a werewolf, so fits in with Hound Doom being a doggo. And with that, we will now move on to our final Pokemon here. Oh, I guess I didn't mention the abilities. I'll just real quick just go over that Dusknor has Frisk, which is an excellent ability to have in draft, having a Frisk Pokemon, so that's always going to be great. And Hound Doom has Flash Fire. It also has Early Bird, but probably won't make much use of that. I already have it. I can be Terra Grass to ignore the Spore, but having Flash Fire with Terra Grass, I think that could pair pretty darn well. But our final Pokemon is going to be Illumise. And Illumise only has one role here, that being it's a prankster Pokemon. So with prankster, we can do a lot of shenanigans. Prankster Encore, prankster Thunderwave, prankster Screens, just cause all types of shenanigans that way. I think that having a prankster Pokemon in draft, I really realized that in the last season of the BHDL, how powerful that can be, especially if you can have multiple. But obviously, it's not the best prankster Pokemon, but it's the prankster Pokemon I could afford at this point. A lot of the other ones were already gone. And I think I could have gotten Sableye, but I just wanted to try out Illumise here. Just because, yeah, it's cool. Illumise is going to be named after Sheila, who is actually Benjamin's wife. It's the whole story, it's the whole thing. You guys will see, it's pretty funny what happens with that. But basically, that's the team. So I made it a Terra Captain. It doesn't really have to be a Terra. I'm probably not ever going to Terra this thing unless I'm basically Prankster Dark for opposing Prankster Mons. Let's say if that ever happened, and I had to become a Dark type for some reason to not get Prankstered, even though I'm not sure why they would Prankster Illuminate. Maybe they would Prankster Taunt me, and I don't want to get Prankster Taunted, obviously, so that's why I Terra Dark. With that, though, that's pretty much going to be the team. And we'll see you guys soon, every week, with a new draft battle in the UNPL. So we'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.